for school staff like New Jersey, New York, etc. But this is something that's in the works across the nation. The timetable will depend on the leadership of each state. Keep in mind that several other vaccines that have FDA approval are already required in our schools. For example, measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, polio, the list goes on and on, all things that are already required for entry into Florida schools as a student because these were imminent threats to public health, and we had approved vaccines that suppressed all of those infectious diseases. And now we're at the step where the first COVID vaccine has full FDA approval, and in fact, we are already seeing a flood of new requirements. After the FDA fully approved the Pfizer vaccine for those 16 and older, the U.S. military sped up its plans to require it for all on active duty. New York City schools announced it'll be required for all teachers in that city, and that's just the start. When and to what extent do you expect other school systems and companies to follow their lead?
Well, I think that you'll certainly see more, private entities, more universities and schools make the decision to mandate vaccines, because I think that when you have full approval, there's that's the gold standard when it comes to the approval of any kind of medication or vaccination. And I think that having that, employers and these private entities are going to feel like they're on more solid ground to do so.
The Department of Justice and EEOC said companies have the legal right to require their employees to get the vaccine under emergency use authorization. They said they didn't need full approval as long as they make reasonable accommodations for some with certain specific health issues or religious objections. So states like New York and California and hundreds of colleges and universities already required their employees to be vaccinated. And some of the nation's largest companies like Google and Facebook already required their workers to get vaccinated before full FDA approval. But many other companies have been waiting for full approval to counter any potential legal challenge or dispute over what the DOJ and EEOC have said.
The full approval, called biological licensing application, now allows them the ability to require vaccination and not be as concerned about lawsuits and other challenges that might arise.
As for requiring the COVID vaccine in our schools, just as we require vaccines to suppress polio and measles, Dr. Fauci told us on Thursday that may be the next step.
I think it will be actively considered that this might come under the category of the other infections that you mentioned, the polio, the measles, the mumps, rubella. Can't say that that will happen, but certainly it's going to be discussed.
The CDC would weigh in on it first, then the states would decide when or whether to require it for all students in their schools. And again, states have a legal right to, in fact, require vaccines for students in public schools, but the timetable in Florida is not clear, and there is some law that appears to conflict with itself. For example, the governor has already signed a law banning people from presenting proof of vaccination. Does not appear to apply to employers and their employees, but it also gets very complicated with the students as well. And this is something that the legislature and the governor would ultimately have to sign off on in Florida, and that's why the timetable likely takes us into a matter of weeks, if not months, as this is debated, and it's already a very contentious issue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, already the legal challenges. Do we know if the Supreme Court has dealt with any of these challenges to the states and their rights to mandate vaccines?
Yeah, there's a case called Jacobson versus Massachusetts that goes all the way back to 1905. And in that case, the Supreme Court determined that, in fact, there is a legal right to require vaccinations. The caveats being that they must provide free access to those who cannot afford it, a free means of getting the vaccine, and also an opt-out for children only in cases where a physician deems a child to be medically unfit to receive a state-mandated vaccine.
Very interesting, since there's some legal precedent. It's going to be interesting to see which way this goes. Thank you, Craig.